Perhaps you felt like you were living in a play where every action, word, and choice was scripted by someone else. You smile when you're supposed to, nod when it's expected, and try to fit into molds built from the expectations of family, society, and the fear of rejection. But at some point, maybe in a quiet crisis or on an empty afternoon, you suddenly ask yourself, is this me? Carl Jung, who opened the door to the depths of the human mind, once said that the greatest privilege of a lifetime is to become yourself. Not the version the world expects, but the real, unfiltered self lying dormant beneath the mask you've worn for too long. We don't truly begin to live until we find ourselves not the self defined by name, job, or biography, but the deeper, wilder, fuller self. That journey isn't easy. It demands you strip away the layers that once protected you, but have now become chains. Yet life begins on that path back to the true self, no longer just existing, but being present, and no longer acting a role, but being free. Number 1. Why do most of us never find ourselves? From the moment we let out our first cry, society begins handing us a script, roles with ready-made lines: the good child, the excellent student, the kind person, the successful one. Every expectation, every compliment, every disappointed look from an adult silently adds another line to that script. And we, like diligent actors, learn how to please the audience. We learn to smile when we're sad, stay silent when angry, and appear strong when we're hurt. Carl Jung called that mask the persona, the social self. It's the good version we present to the world to be accepted. The persona isn't inherently bad. It helps us function in society, build relationships, and feel safe. But the problem is, we start believing that we are that mask. Have you ever heard someone say, "I don't know who I am anymore," after a shock, a turning point, a breakup? When a role we've clung to for too long is ripped away, what's left behind is a stark truth. We never really knew ourselves beyond what others wanted us to be. For example, a woman who spent her entire life being the perfect mother, sacrificing everything for her children, suddenly falls into crisis when they grow up and leave. Not because she's no longer a mother, but because that was the only role she ever lived. She never truly explored her dreams, emotions, or personal needs. Or a man who's always been the solid provider, carrying everything on his shoulders, never allowing himself to be vulnerable. Till one day, he realizes he's never permitted himself to feel sorrow, to be fragile, to be someone beyond the symbol he's portrayed. When we become too identified with the persona, we gradually lose touch with the true self within. That inner core holds our raw emotions, deep desires, and the most honest voice of our soul. And Jung warned, what is rejected does not disappear. It sinks into the unconscious and continues to steer our lives from the shadows. That's when we start living in contradiction. Outwardly fine, inwardly hollow. Others see us as strong, but we feel lost and inauthentic. If you've ever felt this way, know this: you're not alone. You're simply standing at the threshold of a new journey, the journey of returning to your true self. Number 2, the inner darkness, meeting the shadow. If the persona is the mask we show the world, then the shadow is the part we try to hide, even deny, to the point of forgetting it exists. According to Carl Jung, the shadow is not only made up of negative traits like anger, jealousy, or selfishness. It also includes the parts of us that were never allowed to exist, the sensitivity that was mocked, the creativity that was dismissed, the compassion once seen as weakness. Everything you've ever hidden to be accepted becomes part of your inner darkness. Have you ever wanted to cry but clenched your teeth because you had to be strong? Wanted to say, "I'm not okay," but smiled instead because you shouldn't bother others? Dreamed of something deeply personal but pushed it away because it's not realistic. Each time, you weren't just suppressing emotion, you were pushing a part of yourself into the dark. And the frightening truth is, the darkness doesn't disappear. It waits. Jung believed the shadow is not under our control. It operates quietly in the unconscious, influencing our behavior, decisions, and emotions without us even realizing it. That's why there are times you act like someone else, explode for no reason, overreact, or sabotage the very things you've always wanted. You ask yourself, why do I keep making the same mistakes? Why do I always choose the wrong people? Why am I afraid of success? The answer often lies within the shadow, where old wounds remain unhealed. Limiting beliefs were formed long ago, and parts of you live that you were never brave enough to face. One of the most dangerous and common mechanisms of the shadow is projection. When there's something inside us we can't accept, we project it onto others. Have you ever deeply disliked someone just because they were too confident, while you constantly felt inadequate? Found yourself irritated by someone who always complains, even though you've never admitted how exhausted you are? Judged someone as selfish, while secretly wishing you could live for yourself just once? That is the shadow speaking, not in a whisper, but through your most intense emotional reactions to the outside world. Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." The shadow, if left unrecognized and unintegrated, will keep controlling your life from the dark. It traps you in the same cycles, choosing the wrong people, sabotaging opportunities, feeling unjustly envious, judging others, and then leaves you with guilt, confusion, and self-doubt. But Jung did not see the shadow as an enemy. On the contrary, he believed the key to wholeness lies exactly in that darkness. The shadow isn't just a hiding place for negativity. It holds life energy, creativity, intuition, and forgotten pieces of your true self. When you are brave enough to face it, to understand it, and bring it into conscious life, you're no longer a victim of unconscious patterns. You become your guide. Think of someone who once feared speaking their mind, always said yes, even when they didn't want to. When they begin to accept the part of their shadow that holds repressed anger and the need to be respected, they don't become rude. They become clear, assertive, and self-possessed, or someone who's always envied others' success. When they face their shadow, the fear of failure, the feeling of not being worthy, and dare to admit their desire to be recognized, they transform envy into motivation. Instead of insecurity or judgment, identifying the shadow is not about getting rid of it. Jung emphasized, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. In other words, you don't need to be more positive. You need to start being more honest with yourself. It's not easy, but it is an essential step on the path to finding yourself, because only when you stop running, only when you accept both the light and the darkness within you, can you truly step into a life that is whole, deep, and free. Number 3, finding yourself, not creating, but remembering. We grow up with an unspoken belief. To live a meaningful life, we must become someone. We must achieve something. We must build a better, more perfect version of ourselves. Early on, we dive into the self-development race, learning new skills, setting goals, changing our mindset, and boosting performance. But Carl Jung offered an entirely different perspective. He said, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. For Jung, The path to a meaningful life is not about creating a new self, but remembering the true self we already are, before the world told us who we should be. That self is still there, beneath the mask, beyond the shadow, behind the voices saying, I should and I must. Jung called this process individuation, the process of becoming an individual. It is the journey each person takes to integrate all parts of themselves, from light to shadow, from sharp intellect to tender emotion, from the proud ego to the forgotten inner child, not to become perfect, but to become whole, to be fully oneself, without hiding, without fragmentation. Individuation does not happen outside, it happens entirely within. It demands the courage to look inward instead of continuing to run. It's easy to get caught in the whirlwind of busyness, using work, social media, or social roles as shields to avoid the emptiness inside. But Jung emphasized that facing oneself is the beginning of all true healing and transformation. It's not a grand gesture, it's simply stopping and listening to the small voice within, not the ego trying to control or strategize, but the quiet calling from your deepest self. Sometimes it only whispers, I'm tired, or I want something different, or even, I don't know who I am, but I want to find out. That moment is where the journey of individuation begins. For example, a woman who always plays the role of the strong one is good at enduring, always helping others. One day, she allows herself to admit exhaustion. She writes in a journal, cries, and listens to her body and emotions. And from that place of softness, a new kind of strength emerges, not from willpower, but from authenticity. Or a man who once chased love to fill a void, until one day he chooses to be alone, not from loneliness, but from a desire to understand himself. He realizes that behind his need for attachment is a child who never truly felt loved. When he faces and embraces that part of himself, a new kind of peace arises, not from someone else, but from within. As you enter the process of individuation, you won't become a better person, but you will begin to live truthfully. You'll stop trying to please everyone and start respecting your real feelings. You'll stop measuring yourself by others' standards and start measuring by your sense of freedom and inner connection. You'll stop saying, this is the kind of person I am, and begin asking, what part of me needs to be heard right now? Jung never promised an easy road. He didn't say you would be happy right away, but he pointed to a real direction, a journey that is deep, demanding, but utterly true. And only when you dare to go deep enough, to face yourself long enough, will you stop living a role and start living as yourself. And that is where life truly begins. Number 4. The tools Jung suggested to find the self again. The journey back to your true self, the path of individuation, cannot be traveled with reason alone, because the true self does not reside on the surface of consciousness, where logic and intellect dominate. It lies deep in the unconscious, where symbols, dreams, emotions, and vague images take center stage. Carl Jung understood this more than anyone. He was not only a psychologist, but an explorer of the inner world, where the light of reason does not reach, and only the whisper of the self waits to be heard. And to communicate with that world, Jung offered us powerful tools: dreams, symbols, art, and emotions. Jung called dreams the little hidden door in the innermost and most secret recesses of the soul. While many other psychological schools dismissed dreams as meaningless or mere byproducts of random brain activity, Jung believed dreams were the language of the unconscious, a form of correspondence from the deepest part of us to our conscious mind. In dreams, our inner opposites take shape as images: darkness, light, water, staircases, old rooms, strangers, or strange animals. Each dream carries a story, a message that if we are patient enough to listen and humble enough to interpret, can show us ourselves more clearly than any book ever could. Jung did not encourage dream analysis through formulas. Instead, he urged us to approach dreams with intuition and respect. For example, someone dreams of being lost in a dark forest. This dream shouldn't be decoded by any fixed system, but questioned. What does that dark forest represent in me? It could symbolize emotional chaos, a period of confusion in life, or an unexplored inner darkness. Or it might be an invitation to embark on a journey of self-discovery, a journey that always begins in uncertainty, disorientation, and the unknown. Dreams don't give you answers. They raise questions, and if you know how to listen, those questions can open a door. Beyond dreams, symbols, and creative art are powerful means that Jung encouraged people to use to communicate with the unconscious. Not everyone has the analytical language to journal or do psychological introspection, but everyone can draw, write, sing, or simply create something, not to perform, but to express what the mind has not yet found words for. When you pick up a pencil and let your hand move freely without trying to follow any form, you are giving your unconscious a chance to express what it has been holding in silence. A chaotic scribble might represent repressed emotion. A repeated spiral might point to a life pattern you haven't yet noticed. What matters is not how good the art is, but that you create a space where your deeper self can finally speak. Jung often used mandala, symbolic circular drawings representing wholeness, as a healing tool. He didn't just analyze others' mandalas, but drew his own during periods of crisis to bring clarity to inner psychological processes. For Jung, art was not about showcasing talent, but about journeying into the self, and from there returning to the world with a deeper understanding of who you are. Another essential tool that Jung always emphasized, though it is often overlooked, is emotion. In the modern world, we are taught to control, suppress, or positivize emotions instead of listening to them. But for Jung, emotions are the compass of the unconscious. Anytime you feel a strong reaction, anger, jealousy, shame, sadness, pause and ask, where is this coming from? It may be a sign that the shadow is active. Envy toward someone's success might point to a part of you that feels you haven't lived up to your potential. Excessive anger could be the voice of your inner child, once silenced and dismissed. Emotions are a doorway into parts of ourselves that have yet to be integrated. When you dare to listen to them, without judgment, without trying to shut them down, you are doing what Jung called making the darkness conscious. This isn't just therapeutic. It's reconnection, reuniting with the parts that were cut off, and bringing them back to build a fuller, more vibrant self. All of the tools Jung proposed, dreams, symbols, art, and emotion, do not require you to be a psychologist. They only require honesty, patience, and enough inner stillness to truly listen. What matters most is that you don't seek answers outside yourself, but begin the journey of asking the right questions from within. What am I feeling right now? What does this image say about me? Why did I react so strongly to this? What part of me needs attention right now? Finding yourself is not a task for a single day or a workshop. It is a lifelong journey. And the tools Jung gave us are reminders that everything you need to understand yourself is already within you. You only need to be brave enough to stop running and open enough to listen. Number 5, archetypes, the hidden patterns within you. One of Carl Jung's most revolutionary contributions to psychology was not in diagnosing pathology, but in uncovering a deeper layer of the human mind, where the individual is no longer a separate entity, but part of an ancient current, the collective unconscious. Jung proposed that beyond the personal unconscious, where memories, emotions, and individual experiences are stored, there exists a shared layer of the unconscious that all humans inherit, regardless of culture, geography, or time. This is where the archetypes reside. Primal psychological patterns embedded deep in the structure of the human soul through thousands of years of evolution. Archetypes are not specific characters, but deep-rooted psychological templates that shape how we feel, react, and live in the world. They are the blueprints of behavior, emotion, and personal growth. Living symbols that have existed since the dawn of human storytelling. Archetypes like the hero, the mother, the trickster, the child, the wise old man. These are not only found in mythology, religion, or fairy tales, but continue to live and function in every decision, every inner conflict, and every deep desire within each of us. Have you ever wondered why every culture tells similar stories? Why are we moved by a character's journey through trials to discover the meaning of life? It's because, beneath language, religion, or social circumstances, the human psyche is built from the same ancient patterns. And more importantly, these archetypes are not just symbols out there. They are parts of you. Take a simple example: the hero archetype. This isn't a superhero or a cinematic warrior. It is the inner drive that pushes you to rise, to surpass limits, to face trials in search of a higher version of yourself. The hero's journey often begins with a call, a restless urge, a disruption, or a crisis that forces you out of your comfort zone. Along the way, you confront enemies, sometimes circumstances, sometimes others, but more often your fears, wounds, or shadow. And if you dare to move through them, you don't just win, you are reborn. This is why Jung saw archetypes as spiritual maps guiding the journey of growth. When you live unconsciously, you are ruled by archetypes. But when you become aware of them, you can begin to work with them, unlocking deep potential within. Someone with a strong mother archetype may be deeply nurturing and compassionate, but without balance, may fall into blind self-sacrifice, losing themselves in caring for others. The trickster archetype may help you break old limits and escape social constraints, but it can also lead to self-sabotage and chaos if left unchecked. Recognizing the archetypes within you is a crucial step in the individuation journey. You begin to understand yourself beyond what I like or what I do for a living, and start to connect with the deeper forces quietly shaping your development. Archetypes give you the language to name what you've always sensed but never knew how to express. You begin to see clearly. Why do I repeat the same patterns? Why am I drawn to a certain kind of person? Why is there a part of me that always wants to rebel or always fears abandonment? Jung didn't view archetypes as fate, but as gateways, paths to self-understanding and transformation. When you recognize which archetype is shaping your current story, you can choose to live more consciously, more awake. Instead of being trapped in the loop of the failed hero, you can realize that your current struggle is only a pause in a larger journey of transformation. Instead of letting the wounded child archetype keep you fearful and avoidant, you can return to that part of yourself and begin to heal the wounds of neglect. And the beautiful thing is, archetypes are not fixed. They shift and evolve through the stages of life. In youth, you may live boldly through the hero archetype, eager to clash and conquer. But in a later phase, the wise elder begins to speak, inviting you to slow down, listen more, and share wisdom instead of competing. Understanding this helps you move with the natural flow of maturity, rather than clinging to a role that has outlived its time. Archetypes do not ask you to believe in mysticism or mythology. They only ask you to begin listening inward, listening to the images that repeat in your dreams, the characters you often imagine, the intense emotions you can't explain, and even the inner conflicts that seem irrational, because all of these are how archetypes speak, reminding you that some part of you needs attention, needs to be lived, and needs to be integrated. Jung didn't want you to run away from who you are in search of some ideal version. He wanted you to understand every archetype you carry is a piece of a larger whole, and you don't need to discard any of them, only to gather them, connect them, integrate them, and allow each part to coexist within a larger, truer self. Number 6. The true self beyond the ego. At a certain point in the journey of individuation, you'll come to a deeply unsettling truth. You are not who you thought you were. You are not just your name, title, past, preferences, or beliefs. All of those, the pieces you once used to define who I am, are in fact only surface layers, a temporary structure that helps you survive and adapt in the world. Carl Jung called that layer the ego, the small self. The ego is the conscious part formed through experience, perception, and defense mechanisms. It's the voice that says, I like this, I hate that, I'm not that kind of person, I need to do this to be accepted. The ego helps you navigate social life, providing a sense of control and consistency. But it's also the very thing that limits you, because it fears change, clings to certainty, and holds on to old self-definitions like a lifeline. Jung didn't see the ego as an enemy. He viewed it as a necessary part of the psyche, but only a part, not the whole of who you are. The true self, according to Jung, lies deeper. It is the self. The self is the center of the entire being, the totality of both conscious and unconscious aspects, of everything known and unknown within you. The self is not the image you create to function in society. It is your raw, whole, and unlimited essence. This is a core difference in Jung's thinking. While the ego functions by separating, excluding, and dividing, the self works through connection, unity, and integration. The self doesn't insist, I'm this kind of person, or I never do that. The self has nothing to prove. It simply exists naturally like a flowing river, encompassing all that you have been, are now, and might become. With this understanding, you begin to see yourself and the world with new eyes. You realize that who you are is not fixed. The labels you once gave yourself, I'm an introvert, I'm a perfectionist, I'm strong, are only temporary resting places along the journey of self-discovery. They may be true at one point, but they should never become chains, because you are an ever-expanding, ever-changing being, never confined by the past or any single identity. True freedom, as Jung pointed out, doesn't come from becoming perfect. It comes from freeing yourself from the illusion of who you think you must be. It's when you stop straining to be someone and instead allow yourself to be whatever the present moment invites. It's when you no longer cling to the question, who am I? But live in deep listening to whatever part of you is speaking right now. Someone who always saw themselves as a rational person might suddenly find themselves moved by a piece of music, by rain, or by an abstract painting. Someone who believed they were strong might discover that the tenderness in their heart is the most precious thing they have. When you live from the self, nothing is excluded. No part of you is wrong or needs to be fixed. The greatest challenge in this process is letting go of the ego's grip. That part always saying, I must be this to be loved, I can't be weak. I need to control everything. The ego doesn't like ambiguity. It fears losing power. But if you dare to step through that fog, what you'll find isn't chaos. It's a vast, compassionate space where everything you once hid can finally be seen, loved, and brought home. Jung once wrote, "You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become. And you cannot truly choose anything unless you know who you are beyond your past stories." The self is where you stop being a victim of personal history and become the creator of the present. It's where you're no longer defined by what you've done, but guided by who you're becoming. From the self, you begin to live in deep connection with your true nature, not as some lofty ideal, but as a vivid, daily experience. You begin to trust your intuition over outside expectations. You begin to choose what feels right for you, even if no one else understands. You no longer feel the need to protect an image, because you know your true self needs no defense. When you live from the self, you don't just know who you are. You feel yourself fully, naturally, and without contradiction. It's not a state of success as society defines it, but a state of deep peace, born from acceptance and connection with your whole being. And it is precisely there, here, the ego dissolves, and the true self is remembered, that the journey back to yourself reaches its deepest layer. Life is no longer about building an identity, but about living truthfully, consciously, and wholly, one moment at a time. Number 7. A practical guide, beginning the journey to find yourself. Understanding alone is not enough. Jung once emphasized, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain, and no awakening through reading alone, but through living with oneself." Once you've stepped into your inner world through concepts like persona, shadow, archetypes, and self, the next essential step is practice. Turning awareness into experience, turning theory into true transformation. Below are 5 simple yet profound approaches to help you begin the journey of returning to yourself, not by trying to become someone else, but by gradually peeling away the layers of who you no longer are. 1. Observe what triggers strong emotional reactions. Start with something simple. Notice what makes you angry, hurt, jealous, or unusually uncomfortable. These intense emotional reactions often don't just reflect the present, they are doorways into the shadow. When you feel irritated by someone who is too confident, you might be confronting the part of you whose confidence was once crushed. When you're triggered by someone who's too needy, perhaps it's the part of you that was forced to be so strong. You never allowed yourself to need anyone. View these emotions as clues, not flaws. Write them down. Gently ask yourself, what is this feeling trying to tell me about myself? And listen without judgment. 2. Chord your dreams. Look for recurring symbols and the emotions beneath them. Dreams are one of the shortest paths to the unconscious. Keep a notebook beside your bed, and when you wake, even if all you remember is a fragment, a scene, or a vague feeling, write it down. Don't rush to interpret. Just record it, and after a few days you'll start to notice recurring symbols, themes, or emotions your waking mind tends to ignore. A locked door, a foggy path, an abandoned child. These are not just images, they are messages. Think of each dream as a map. It won't take you straight to the destination, but it will point to where your inner work needs to begin. 3. Practice morning free writing. Let the unconscious speak. A highly effective exercise is free writing every morning, right after waking. No editing, no overthinking, no concern for grammar or style. Write whatever comes to mind. A vague feeling, a repeating phrase, a worry without shape. Write to release, write to express, write to connect. By pouring out the unformed, You clear a path for the unconscious to surface. And the wonder is this: you may be surprised to find that a deeper part of you has always known the answers. It just never had the chance to speak. 4. Ask, who am I without these labels? We live under countless labels: gender, profession, social roles, personality traits. They help us navigate the world, but can easily become cages. Try sitting quietly and asking, if I were not someone's child, not this job title, not the image others see, who am I? This question doesn't demand an immediate answer. It simply opens a space in your mind, a space where you allow yourself to be anything, undefined. And in that space, something true begins to emerge. 5. Welcome discomfort with curiosity, not judgment. The journey back to yourself isn't always gentle. There will be days of emptiness, confusion, or inner conflict. Instead of trying to positivize these emotions, practice being with them, like a friend, not a foe. Discomfort is not wrong. It's a messenger bearing something essential. When you feel inexplicably sad, instead of fleeing, ask, what part of me is being forgotten? When you feel angry, ask, what boundary of mine is being crossed? The more you welcome, the more you understand. And the more you understand, the more you heal. There is no one right method for everyone. You don't need to do all of these at once. Just choose the one that feels most approachable to you. What matters is not how fast you go, but whether you truly begin. Carl Jung didn't create a system to be blindly followed. He handed you a map. But reading it and walking the path is your choice. And remember this: you don't need to become anyone to begin the journey. Your true self has always been there, patiently waiting for your return. Every time you listen to a feeling, write down a dream, observe a reaction, or simply sit quietly with yourself, you move closer to the truth. Not to find the ideal self, but to remember the true self that was forgotten. And that is where real life begins. None of us truly lives until we've returned to meet ourselves. Not the polished version shaped to please the world. Not the self built from expectations, responsibilities, or fear, but the real self whole, sometimes messy, full of contradictions, yet alive and fully present in every breath. Carl Jung didn't urge you to change into someone else. He simply invited you to return to the forgotten, hidden, repressed parts of yourself, and from there, reconnect with the wholeness within. That journey doesn't happen in a single moment of enlightenment, but in every small step. Being honest with your emotions, writing down a dream at night, quietly putting into words something you've never dared to say. And from those small fragments, you begin to piece yourself back together. The truth is, fear will always be there. The fear of being no one once the mask is removed. The fear of not knowing who you are if you stop chasing labels. But Jung taught that on the other side of that fear lies freedom, awakening, and the real life you've always longed for, but never fully allowed yourself to live. So wherever you are on your journey, whether you're still feeling lost or starting to see the path, keep moving forward, because life, in its truest sense, begins the moment you dare to meet yourself again. And right now, that path is opening beneath your feet. Have you ever experienced a moment of meeting yourself again? Feel free to share your story, your feelings, or your questions in the comments, because what you're living through might be exactly what someone else is searching for. And if this journey stirred something in you, don't forget to save it, share it, or send it to a friend who may also be on the road to finding themselves. This journey isn't for a chosen few, it's an open invitation for everyone. There are moments when life suddenly falls into an eerie stillness, The things that once thrilled us, success, fame, conquest, now feel like fading echoes, and somewhere within, a quiet question begins to rise. Everything I worked so hard for, was it ever truly enough? Turning 40 often marks such a threshold. Society tends to label it a crisis, but Carl Jung, the great psychologist of the 20th century, saw something far deeper. He believed it was the true beginning of life. In the layered inner world that Jung explored, midlife is not the end of the road, but a gateway, one that leads to a more authentic, fuller existence. In today's video, we'll walk through that gateway together, not with hollow motivational slogans, but with a deep understanding of the natural transformations unfolding within you and how to turn them into your greatest strength. If you've ever felt adrift, if you're standing at the edge of the question, who am I really? Then perhaps you are exactly where you need to be. Number 1. First half of life. Preparation and persona. There are chapters in life when we're busy, successful, and playing our roles just right. Yet we still feel something's missing, something we can't quite name. Strangely, that feeling doesn't show up when everything's falling apart. It often comes when life seems fine, work is stable, family is okay, relationships show no red flags. Then, out of nowhere, maybe while driving home or waiting to pick up the kids, a quiet question surfaces. Who am I in all of this? It's not a crisis, it's a signal. To understand that signal, we have to look back, especially at the first half of life. Carl Jung believed that the first half isn't the main act, it's the setup. And it matters, because without it, there's no foundation for real change. In the first half of life, we mostly learn to adapt. From a young age, we pick up on what's expected, what parents want, what teachers praise, what society values. We quickly learn to adjust ourselves to fit those expectations. No one tells us we have to. We just figure it out, because it helps us feel safe, accepted, and loved. That's when a version of ourselves is born, not our real self, but a self designed to fit in. The boy who's good at school gets praised for being smart, so he pushes himself to be perfect, slowly tying his worth to being the top student. The girl who's always polite and calm rarely lets herself show anger or frustration, afraid it might ruin her image of being the sweet one. A man starts his career just wanting independence, but over time becomes so attached to being seen as successful that he forgets why he started in the first place. These roles eventually become the self we believe in. Jung called it the persona, the social mask we wear to fit into the world, to belong, to survive. It's useful, it's necessary, it gives us a place. But like an old coat worn too long, it starts to feel tight. A father in his 40s, after years of being the family rock, finds himself sitting in the living room not knowing what to do when there's no work to be done. No one ever said he had to be strong all the time, but he's played the role so long, he doesn't know how to let himself feel tired. A middle manager known for solving problems starts to feel disconnected from herself every time she puts on a smile for her team, even though she's struggling inside. These cracks usually appear quietly, almost invisibly. Many people think that emptiness signals failure, but often it's the beginning of awakening. When we ask ourselves, what am I really living for? That's when the mask begins to slip. It's not that we've lived the wrong life. We lived what we needed to live at the time. But now, it's time to live differently. One common misconception is that living authentically means throwing everything away. But in truth, this shift rarely starts with drastic change. It starts with a pause and a question. A woman who handles everything at home one day asks herself, do I actually like cooking? Or have I just gotten used to doing it? That question doesn't stop her from cooking right away, but next time, she feels free to ask her husband to cook. She feels awkward, but also lighter. A man who's spent 15 years in finance suddenly finds joy reading philosophy. Before, he'd have dismissed it. What's the point? But this time, he lets himself follow that spark. Not to switch careers, but to reconnect with a long-lost part of himself. The key here is, when we start recognizing parts of our life that no longer feel true, we don't have to burn it all down. We just need to be honest with ourselves. And that honesty doesn't mean confessing everything to others. It starts quietly, internally, without judgment. A small step might be asking yourself during mundane moments, while doing dishes, driving, or lying in bed, what did I do today not because I wanted to, but because I thought I should? Not to blame, just to notice. With enough observation, a pattern appears. We realize some habits aren't driven by joy, but by identity roles we've outgrown. Some relationships always have us giving, even when we're drained. Some goals, once achieved, feel hollow. Let's be clear, the first half of life wasn't wrong. It was essential. It taught us how to live, love, fail, and rise again. But if we cling to those old templates forever, we'll never meet our deeper self. Real life, in the most meaningful sense, begins when we start to ask, what part of my life is truly me? And what part is just a role I've been playing? Picture this. Your persona is like a suit of armor. It protects you, helps you stay strong in tough environments. But if you keep wearing it, even after you've come home, when you're alone, eventually it starts to press into your skin. Midlife, then, isn't about taking it off forever. It's about learning when to wear it and when to let it go. The question is, how do you tell what's armor and what's your own skin? The answer comes from noticing how you feel. When you do something, do you feel energized or drained? Do you feel alive or like you're just performing? The things that make us feel light are often closer to our true self than we realize. Someone might discover they love teaching, not to become a teacher, but because guiding others makes them feel connected. Someone else might realize they hate parties, not because they dislike people, but because they're deeply introverted. Another person who once loved being in the spotlight may now feel most at peace, curled up with a quiet book. Small shifts like these, when noticed and respected, can guide us toward bigger changes. It starts with observation, continues with honesty, and builds through small, concrete actions, stepping back from the performance, creating space for yourself, letting go of the need to get it all right. Instead of chasing perfection, try becoming more accurate, more true to who you really are. And if you're beginning to feel small cracks in your mask, that's not collapsing. That's where the light gets in. That's where real life begins. From that moment, a question starts to form. If the roles I've lived by no longer define me, then what's waiting to be named? As the mask begins to fade, what part of me is slowly waking up? The next chapter won't be about who I need to be in other people's eyes, but who I can become when I finally live as myself. That's where the journey of becoming truly begins. Number 2, midlife, individuation, and self-discovery. The first half of life is about building a persona, a social mask we wear to fit in and succeed. But at some point, often around midlife, that mask begins to feel heavy. The achievements we once chased no longer make us feel alive. Life, seemingly settled, starts whispering a restless question. Is this truly my life? That's when the journey of individuation begins. In Jung's view, individuation isn't about becoming a better person by external standards. It's about becoming whole embracing both the parts we cherish and the ones we've rejected. It's the inward journey of facing ourselves and accepting the full complexity of who we are, instead of constantly reshaping ourselves to fit social ideals. In our youth, we learn to hide our fears, suppress our dreams, and mute our emotions. A sensitive girl is taught to be strong and learns to stay silent when hurt. A creative boy who loves to paint is pushed toward practical careers, burying a part of his soul. According to Jung, these parts don't disappear. They become the shadow, the imprisoned aspects of our spirit quietly begging to be acknowledged. The shadow isn't just the bad things we hide. It's also our abandoned dreams and neglected talents. A person who lashes out in anger may, deep down, be longing for freedom. Someone who envies others' success might be burying their own passion out of fear of failure. If we don't confront these shadows, they operate in the dark, showing up as outbursts, rash decisions, or recurring patterns of painful relationships. Individuation begins when we can admit, I am not perfect, and I don't need to be. A woman in her 40s, after years devoted to family, suddenly remembers her childhood love for ballet. Instead of scolding herself for being selfish, she signs up for an adult ballet class. Each evening she moves slowly and quietly, not for anyone else, but to feel life stirring again in her body. That moment is individuation. A man who spent his life chasing career success realizes he has sacrificed his closest relationships. One evening, sitting alone in his luxurious but empty apartment, he calls an old friend, for no reason but to reconnect. That simple call is the first step toward healing the fear of abandonment he had long buried. As Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But claiming that privilege requires stepping into uncharted territories within ourselves, where light and shadow both exist. A simple but powerful practice for this journey. At the end of each day, ask yourself, what was the strongest emotion I felt today? What is it trying to tell me? No judgment, no brushing it aside. If you feel angry at a colleague's promotion, don't rush to blame yourself. Maybe beneath the anger lies sadness for having abandoned your true passion. If you feel envious of someone's freedom, it might be a reminder that you too have longed for that freedom but denied it. Imagine individuation like cleaning out the attic of your soul. At first, the dust will choke you. The forgotten objects will confuse or sadden you. But as you clear the space, you'll uncover hidden treasures, an old photo rekindling a lost dream, a worn notebook reminding you of a self you once abandoned. Those treasures are the parts of life that truly need to be lived. A paradox appears along the way. The more we face our fears, the freer we become. Someone who always avoided conflict out of fear of rejection might be surprised to find, after speaking their truth, not rejection, but deeper respect from others. Have you ever wondered, what would happen if, instead of fighting your inner insecurities, you listened to them as you would to a frightened child needing comfort? Individuation also means breaking free from the habit of living for others. A practical way to start. Before any big decision, instead of asking, what will people think? Ask, what do I truly want? Don't rush the answer. Sometimes you won't know right away, and that's okay. Just keep listening. Truth unfolds in silence. When we live through a persona, the questions revolve around, how can I achieve more? But when we step into individuation, the questions shift. How can I live more authentically each day? This shift doesn't happen overnight. It's built through countless small choices, quietly stacking into profound transformation. Someone once afraid to change careers for fear of losing income begins by taking a small online course at night. Someone who longed to write dedicates 30 minutes each morning to writing before work. These small daily acts are the breath of individuation. And slowly, life starts to change, not with fanfare, but in quieter, deeper ways. You breathe more fully. Each day feels less like a checklist and more like a piece of yourself coming home. You begin to live less from expectations and more from inner alignment. Individuation doesn't promise an easy life. It promises a real one, a life where you no longer contort yourself to appear right in others' eyes, but simply stay true to yourself. It's not just a spiritual choice. It's tied to deep shifts in our bodies and minds as we mature. Midlife is a natural turning point, not because of age alone, but because subtle emotional and cognitive changes nudge us back toward our authentic selves. To truly understand why midlife marks such a profound inner transformation, we must listen closely to the quiet changes within, the shifting emotions, the evolving thoughts, all whispering the way back home. Number 3. Emotional and neurological transformation. In our 20s, emotions are like summer winds, hot, unpredictable, and capable of stirring the calmest waters of our minds. A passing criticism, a disapproving glance, or even a small failure could easily throw us into inner turmoil. Yet, as Carl Jung pointed out, such reactions aren't mistakes or signs of weakness. They are a natural part of growing up. He once wrote, "We cannot change anything until we accept it." Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses. In our youth, we have yet to touch the deeper layers of ourselves. Emotional turbulence isn't a sign of defeat. It's a reminder that the preparation for a meaningful life is still underway. As we move into middle age, a subtle shift occurs. What once kept us up at night begins to lose its grip. Rejection, which might have once triggered a fear of abandonment, is now met with a quiet understanding. Everyone has their limits. If you pay attention, you'll notice your decisions are no longer driven by fear of loss or longing for approval, but by your true values. Instead of agreeing to an invitation just to keep the peace, you find yourself gracefully declining when it doesn't align with what you genuinely need. Neuroscience backs this transformation. As we age, especially into middle adulthood, the brain naturally restructures itself around emotion and behavior. The amygdala, the brain's center for intense emotional responses, calms down over time. Meanwhile, connections between the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for self-control, reasoning, and judgment, strengthen. As a result, we become less reactive to emotional triggers and develop the ability to recognize our feelings, examine their roots, and choose our responses wisely. Instead of getting swept away by emotions, we learn to observe them, understand them, and act with greater self-mastery. It's like a river after a storm. The muddy water slowly settles, revealing the peaceful bed beneath. Middle age is when the inner waters begin to clear. We no longer react impulsively to every disruption. We learn to sit with our emotions, observe them, and let them pass without being carried away. Bad news doesn't shatter us. Pain no longer feels like an incurable wound. There is a quiet resilience, like an ancient tree that has weathered countless storms. Emotional maturity isn't about becoming numb or indifferent. It's the opposite, a sign of a heart that has stopped trying to control everything. In our youth, we believe if we work hard enough, we can eliminate all negative feelings. But life doesn't work that way. True growth happens when we stop trying to banish our emotions and instead allow them to exist without letting them take the wheel. Like a boatman navigating rough waters, we can't command the winds to stop, but we can learn to steer without capsizing. Surprisingly, this maturity doesn't come from forcing ourselves to control emotions. It comes from accepting them as passing visitors. What truly matters is not their arrival, but how we respond. A negative emotion might knock on the door at any time, but we don't have to invite it in, offer it tea, and let it take over every room. In that light, our choices start to shift. In youth, many decisions are shaped by the need for approval. We pick safe careers out of fear of failure. We hold on to unsuitable relationships out of fear of loneliness. But as the brain's emotional centers stabilize, we find ourselves asking, does this truly reflect my values? And we have the strength to act on the answer. This transformation often unfolds quietly, not through dramatic events, but in small moments, pausing to really listen to someone, declining an appealing opportunity because it doesn't align with who we are, allowing ourselves to rest without guilt. These small shifts build up, silently reshaping us into someone no longer torn between external expectations and inner truth. Still, emotional maturity doesn't mean negative emotions vanish. Insecurities, vague sadness, even bursts of anger still arise. The difference is in how we live with them. We no longer rush to fix or eradicate every feeling. We learn to coexist with them, much like living alongside the winds, aware they will come and go, and knowing we don't need to fight every gust. Freed from the tyranny of impulsive emotion, we create space for bigger questions. What truly matters to me? Am I living by my own values? Am I being honest with myself? These reflections unlock a new depth, a depth that youth, with all its hustle and restlessness, rarely allows. If youth is like a half-finished painting, colorful, chaotic, middle age is when the composition starts to take shape. Not because we have perfected the picture, but because we have learned what to leave out, how to respect the empty spaces, and where to let the light shine through. Yet it's honest to admit, emotional maturity often carries a quiet loneliness. As we stop chasing external validation, we realize not everyone will walk this path with us. Some relationships, habits, and identities that once defined us start to feel distant. But this isn't a loss. It's the natural renewal that must happen if we are to live lives that truly belong to us. Perhaps this is part of what Carl Jung meant when he said, life really begins at 40. For the first time, we live not just to react, to satisfy, or to prove something to others. We live for ourselves. And to do that, we need a mind quiet enough, a heart deep enough, and a self strong enough to withstand both our light and our shadows. Ask yourself, how often do you react out of habit? And how often do you choose your response based on what you truly believe? The difference might seem small at the moment, but over time, it's the difference between a life swept along by currents and a life steered by purpose. Thus, middle age isn't a decline, as many fear. It's an invitation to live differently, to live deeper, with more courage, wisdom, and authenticity. Once we understand this, the years ahead are no longer something to dread. They become something to look forward to, like a farmer awaiting the harvest after a long season of cultivation. Life doesn't truly begin when we get everything we want. It begins when we are awake enough to know what we must let go of. And that's when the real journey begins. In the next step, we'll explore why the chaos and challenges of midlife aren't the end, but our greatest opportunity for rebirth. Number 4. Midlife as opportunity, not crisis. When people speak of middle age, it often comes with a quiet shake of the head, a few weary jokes. Midlife crisis. It's all downhill from here. There's nothing new left to expect. It's easy to brand this time with negativity, as if every shift within were a sign of decline. But if we sit with ourselves long enough, if we look carefully, we begin to see. These signs are not an ending. They are an honest whisper, a call to live more truthfully, a reminder that everything before this was only preparation for what truly matters. Carl Jung once suggested that middle age is not a collapse, but a necessary transition. If youth is a season of building and striving to meet the world's expectations, then middle age is when we quietly turn inward and ask, was all of that truly mine? Or was I living a script handed to me by others? Imagine a woman, 43 years old. For 2 decades, she has built a career, raised a family, checked every box she was told to check. But one day, standing before a mirror, she notices something missing in her own gaze. The work no longer stirs her. Relationships feel rehearsed. Life moves forward, but without her in it. The emptiness she feels is not a failure. It is the beginning of something asking to be seen. What we often call a midlife crisis is more accurately a process of release. The roles we have carried, the dutiful father, the tireless employee, the supportive partner, were not mistakes. They were simply chapters. Now, it may be time to lay them down, so that what is more essential can emerge. This is not an easy process. It can feel like a storm dismantling the landscape of who we thought we were. It may bring difficult conversations, unexpected farewells, and uncertain choices. There may be days when even familiar places feel foreign. No one teaches us how to move through this. We are taught how to build a life, how to succeed in the eyes of others, but rarely how to meet ourselves when old definitions fall away. In the absence of guidance, fear often rushes in. We think something must be wrong with us. But the truth is quieter. Something old is breaking open to make room for something more honest. Just as a snake must shed its skin to live, we too must loosen our grip on what no longer serves. It is not a comfortable task. It asks for patience, for a kind of unflinching honesty, and often for the courage to walk away from things once central to our identity. Friendships grown thin, ambitions that no longer fit, measures of success we no longer believe in. You might wonder why, at this stage, the search for meaning sharpens so acutely. The answer is simple. We start to understand, more deeply than ever before, that time is not endless. In youth, we could afford to wait. In middle age, the horizon feels closer. The urgency is not dramatic. It is quiet, steady. It calls us to spend the time we have more carefully. This is not despair. It is a kind of awakening. We no longer wish to bargain with values that feel empty. We no longer seek comfort in easy answers. We begin to ask the questions that truly matter. And this time, we stay with them longer. There is an image I return to. Life as a house. In the first half of life, we are busy building rooms for others, welcoming spaces, polished facades. But at some point, we notice there is no room we have made for ourselves. And so midlife asks us to begin again, to clear away some walls, to build a quieter, truer space where we can finally be at home. There will be days when the work feels overwhelming, when we question whether the dismantling has gone too far. But if we trust the slow unfolding, we come to see that the chaos is not without purpose. It is how something sturdier is born. The work begins with small, steady questions. What am I living for? What truly matters to me now? If I no longer needed approval, what life would I choose? The answers may come slowly. They may arrive like seeds, needing time to take root. But the asking itself changes us. It clears space inside us for something real to grow. Perhaps the first act is as small as declining an invitation that does not feel right, or carving out an hour for something you love without needing it to prove anything, or simply sitting quietly with yourself and asking gently, how am I, really? No grand transformations are needed. only the daily honesty of tending to what is real, one steady, patient step at a time. Middle age is not a crisis, but a clearing, a quiet invitation to build a life that feels true. It is like reaching a quiet summit after a long and winding climb. From there, the path behind, with all its wrong turns and steep slopes, comes into view, not as mistakes, but as necessary parts of the way. And from that place, the real gift of middle age reveals itself: the freedom to live without apology, the depth to love without fear, the clarity to be fully present for whatever time remains. Number 5. The gift of midlife. In middle age, we start seeking different values. It's no longer about achievements, status, or applause from the outside world. What matters now is simple joy, genuine connection, and the feeling of living true to ourselves. An evening gathered with family, a warm hug from a child, a deep conversation with an old friend. Things that once seemed small now become the true source of happiness. I know a father in his 50s who spent years buried in work to secure a future for his children. One day, he decided to spend every weekend playing soccer with his son. He said he had never felt so present before. Career success had once made him proud, but the gleam in his child's eyes during their playtimes made him feel like the luckiest man alive. This is the first gift of middle age. Joy becomes simpler, but infinitely deeper. We learn to find happiness not in our social standing, but in our ability to be fully present with the people and moments that matter. Sometimes, just being grateful for a warm meal is enough to fill a day with contentment. Middle age also brings a quiet but powerful freedom. The freedom to stop living by other people's definitions. A friend of mine, after 20 years as a software engineer, left his job to pursue his passion for photography. In the past, just thinking about such a crazy idea filled him with fear of judgment. But at 45, that fear seemed to shrink. He asked himself, if not now, when? And so he began. No fanfare, no big announcements, just a quiet decision to live honestly. This kind of freedom doesn't come from rebellion. It comes from letting go of the need to please everyone. Like an aging artist who no longer craves the spotlight, but simply wants space to create what they truly believe in. This is the second gift of middle age, reclaiming the right to define your own life. But this freedom isn't handed to us. It demands that we confront the truth that much of our earlier life was a performance. The older we get, the heavier those masks become. One mother told me that she spent her youth trying to be the perfect mother, elaborate meals, top schools for her children, and a spotless house, till one day, exhaustion forced her to stop. She realized that sometimes a simple meal shared with laughter was more precious than a perfect dinner served under stress. Real freedom comes when we dare to take off the masks that no longer fit. It's a simple act, but not an easy one. Saying no to a social event because we need rest. Admitting we've lost passion for a career. Telling our loved ones that we too have moments of weakness. These small acts, accumulated over time, weave a life that is more real and far lighter to carry. Along with freedom, middle age brings a special kind of wisdom. The ability to ask better questions. Instead of, how do I gain recognition? We ask, what truly makes me feel alive? Instead of, how do I avoid failure? We ask, what will I learn if I fail? This wisdom shows up in everyday choices too. A cousin of mine spent a decade chasing promotions, only to later turn down a directorship to have more time for her family and herself. To many, it might have seemed like she missed out. To her, it was a victory over old fears and the need to measure her worth by external standards. We also start seeing relationships differently. Friendships built on obligation, competition, or envy quietly fade. What remains are the sincere ones, where we can simply be ourselves. A deep conversation with someone who truly understands us becomes more valuable than 100 hollow compliments. In our work, we no longer chase titles or bonuses. We start seeking meaning. A former colleague once said he lost interest in high-profile projects. Instead, he chose to work on smaller initiatives that genuinely made a difference, where each day brought an inner sense of fulfillment. In our families, we learn to show up without rigid roles, no longer forcing ourselves to always be the strong father or the self-sacrificing mother. We become real people, listening, admitting that we get tired, and accepting that we sometimes need comfort too. Family stops being a stage for perfect performances and becomes a space where imperfections are welcomed without shame. When we shed these imposed roles, the people who truly see us, not the images we project, begin to appear. They might be few and they might be quiet, but their presence whispers something powerful. I see you. And sometimes, just a handful of such people is enough to make this vast world feel like home. Amid all these changes, a profound realization grows. We no longer need to race. No more battling to win every argument. No more cramming our lives into suffocating schedules. A quiet afternoon spent watching the sunset can make us feel wealthy in a whole new way. Of course, there will still be days of doubt when we wonder if we've chosen the right path. But those small, honest moments, they will guide us. They remind us that the ultimate goal isn't perfection, it's authenticity. Middle age, seen this way, isn't an ending. It's a threshold, the first time we truly have the freedom to rewrite our own story. No more following pre-written scripts. No more living for anyone's expectations but our own. Have you ever wondered, if you could start today with everything you now know about life, how would you choose to live differently? In the end, life isn't about chasing the brightest spotlight. It's about finding the place where your heart feels most at peace. Real life begins at 40, not because we know all the answers, but because for the first time we have the courage to ask the questions that truly matter. Together, we've just explored 5 silent yet invaluable gifts that midlife offers. The truth about the first half of our lives hidden behind the social masks we wore. The journey of individuation, where we begin reclaiming our true selves after years of blending into external expectation. The subtle yet profound changes in our emotions and brains as we mature. A fresh perspective on midlife as a new beginning, rather than a sign of decline. And finally, the most profound gift of all, freedom, wisdom, and a life lived by what truly matters to us. Each lesson quietly reminds us that turning 40 isn't a downward turn, as society often labels it, but a moment when life truly starts to blossom from within. Carl Jung noted that after years of building an outward identity, it's only upon reaching midlife that we become deep enough to embark on the journey of true self-discovery. No longer borrowing other people's dreams, no longer living by outdated scripts. Life truly begins not because the challenges disappear, but because we finally learn to ask the right questions. Who am I? What truly matters to me? And we dare to take our first, often clumsy steps on a path that is uniquely our own. A path with no map, no guiding lights, yet the only road that leads to inner freedom. If you're standing at the threshold of this change, or if you've ever heard those faint yet persistent whispers from within, I invite you to share your story in the comments below. I would love to read about your journeys, because it's these honest, unpolished experiences that bear witness to the soul's true growth. And don't forget to subscribe, because there's much more thoughtful content on its way, created especially for you, the brave souls choosing to live an awakened life. This journey won't always be smooth. There will be days you feel you're slipping backward, losing your way, even questioning your choices. But every step, whether shaky or sure, is an essential part of the growth process. There is no greater gift than one day looking back and realizing you truly lived, not for anyone else's approval, not for applause, but simply to remain faithful to your most authentic self. Because, as Jung reminds us, real life begins the moment we stop searching for ourselves in the eyes of others and start finding ourselves in the quiet depths of our own being.